I woke up gasping for air, my heart pounding against my ribs like a wild drum. My body felt both familiar and strange, like I had been dropped into a past version of myself, but the pain in my chest was real. I pressed my palms against the bed, feeling the cool sheets beneath my fingers. This wasn't the sterile, white hospital room where I had taken my last breath. No, this was. My breath hitched as I scanned my surroundings. Pale pink walls, lace curtains swaying gently from the open window, and the scent of lavender filling the air. My old bedroom, the one I had abandoned the moment I chose Daniel over my own dreams. Panic surged through me as I flung the covers off and ran to the mirror. The reflection staring back at me made my blood run cold. Gone was the exhausted, broken woman with lifeless eyes who had suffered betrayal after betrayal. Instead, a younger version of me stared back, fresh-faced, untouched by heartbreak. My trembling hands reached up to my cheek. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't a hallucination. I had been reborn. Memories of my past life flooded my mind in sharp, unforgiving waves. Daniel's smile, his whispered promises of forever, the warmth of his hands in mine. Then came the betrayal. The late-night calls he thought I wouldn't notice. The way he smelled of someone else's perfume. And then the final blow. The image of him and Lisa, my so-called best friend, tangled together in a mess of sheets, laughing at my foolishness. I clenched my fists. Never again. A sharp knock on my door startled me. Jasmine, are you awake? My mother's voice drifted through the door, warm and familiar, yet tinged with the same impatience I remembered too well. This was the morning Daniel had proposed to me. I remembered it vividly. The excitement, the tears of joy, the way I had thrown away my acceptance letter to a prestigious university abroad, all for the promise of love. Not this time. Yes, I'm awake, I called back, my voice steadier than I expected. Good. Daniel's downstairs waiting for you. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and let a slow smirk curl my lips. Perfect. The scent of freshly brewed coffee greeted me as I stepped into the living room. And there he was, Daniel, standing tall in his crisp white shirt, his brown eyes filled with that same boyish charm that had once made my heart race. Once. He turned the moment he saw me, his smile widening. Morning, love. Love. The word felt like poison on my skin. But I played my part, tilting my head slightly as if I were oblivious to the cruel fate he had once led me to. Morning, I replied, keeping my tone light. My mother beamed, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. Daniel has something special to ask you, she said, practically bouncing on her toes. Oh, I knew what was coming. Daniel took my hand, dropping to one knee in the most dramatic fashion. A small, velvet box appeared in his palm as he looked up at me with feigned adoration. Jasmine, I love you more than anything in this world, he began, his voice smooth and practiced. Will you marry me? I remembered this moment so well. The rush of emotions, the way my mother clapped her hands in excitement, the way Lisa had accidentally spilled her drink and barely masked her smirk. Back then, I had been blinded by love. Back then, I had said yes, but I was no longer that naive girl. I gently pulled my hand from his grasp, straightened my shoulders, and exhaled slowly. The room fell silent, the air thick with anticipation. No, gasps echoed around the room. My mother's face paled. Daniel's smile froze, confusion flickering across his features before he let out an awkward chuckle. What? I folded my arms across my chest, meeting his gaze head-on. I said no. His brows furrowed. Jasmine, are you joking? I'm not. My mother stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder as if I had lost my mind. Sweetheart, what are you saying? Daniel is perfect for you. You love him. Loved. Past tense. And even then, it had been a love built on lies. I don't, I said firmly. Not anymore. Daniel's expression darkened. Jasmine, let's talk about this privately. There's nothing to talk about. I turned my gaze to my mother. I'm leaving for university abroad. I already accepted the scholarship. The air turned thick with tension. My mother's eyes widened in horror. You did what? Daniel's jaw clenched. You're throwing everything away. For what? For myself. Lisa chose that moment to walk in, her perfectly styled curls bouncing as she took in the scene. "What's going on?" I smiled, feeling a surge of satisfaction as I met her gaze. She wasn't expecting this. None of them were. Just rewriting my future. My family was furious. My mother had spent the entire morning pacing the house, her heels clicking against the wooden floors, her voice shrill as she ranted about how I had lost my mind. My father barely spoke to me, shaking his head every time our eyes met. Even my younger sister, Claire, looked at me like I had personally ruined her dreams of a fairy tale wedding. "Jasmine, do you have any idea what you've done?" my mother finally snapped, throwing her hands in the air. "Daniel is a good man. He loves you." I almost laughed. Love? Was love lying? Was love sneaking around with my best friend behind my back? No. Love was trust, respect, and honesty. Things Daniel never gave me. "I know exactly what I've done," I replied, my voice calm but firm. "I've saved myself." Lisa arrived soon after, her expression carefully crafted into one of concern. She rushed to me, grabbing my hands as if we were the closest of friends. "Jasmine, are you okay?" she asked, her eyes wide with fake worry. I stared at her, seeing through the act. The old me would have believed her, but not anymore. "I'm fine," I said coolly. "In fact, I've never been better." Lisa's eyes flickered with something unreadable for a split second before she plastered a sad smile on her face. "Sweetie, I know this is scary, but maybe you just need time to think. Everyone gets cold feet before a wedding. It doesn't mean you should throw away what you and Daniel have." I arched a brow at her. "What exactly do Daniel and I have, Lisa?" She hesitated, glancing at my mother for support. "A future? Love? Stability? Trust?" I pressed, watching as her lips parted slightly, struggling to form a response. I didn't let her, because from where I stand, I don't think Daniel and I ever had that. Before Lisa could come up with another excuse, Daniel arrived, his expression carefully neutral, though I could see the frustration bubbling beneath the surface. He was always good at playing the perfect, loving fiancé in front of an audience. And today he had an entire room watching. "Jasmine," he said, his voice low, controlled, the same way he used to talk to me when he was about to manipulate me. "Can we talk? Alone?" I folded my arms. "Anything you have to say, you can say here." His jaw clenched for a second, but he quickly masked it with a pained expression. "Jazz, please. I don't understand what's happening. We were happy yesterday, and now, all of a sudden, you don't want to marry me? Did I do something wrong? If I did, just tell me and I'll fix it." I let out a slow breath, my stomach twisting at how easily he could pretend. "You didn't do anything wrong today, Daniel," I said carefully. "But you did plenty before today." His eyes widened slightly before he let out a hollow laugh. "Come on, baby. You're not making any sense. We've been together for years. We've planned our future together. I love you. And you love me too, right?" There it was, the guilt trip. The calculated words meant to weaken me. I felt my mother's eyes on me, felt Claire's expectant gaze. Even Lisa was waiting, hoping I would crumble and fall back into line. But I wouldn't. "No," I said softly, shaking my head. "I don't love you, Daniel. I thought I did, but I see things clearly now." He looked as if I had slapped him. "Jasmine." "I'm leaving the country," I cut him off, standing taller. "I accepted the scholarship I once threw away for you. I'm choosing myself this time." My mother gasped. "You what?" Daniel took a step closer, reaching for my hand, but I pulled away. "Jasmine, we can talk about this. You don't have to do something so drastic. Don't you see? We're meant to be together. You're just confused right now." I shook my head. "No, Daniel. I was confused before. Now I finally understand." His face twisted, the mask of a hurt fiancé slipping, revealing the anger beneath. "So you're just going to throw everything away? Our relationship, our wedding, your family's happiness? All for what? A stupid dream." The words stung, but not because they hurt me, because I had believed them once before. I took a deep breath. "It's not a stupid dream. It's my dream, and I won't let you or anyone else take it from me again." Silence fell over the room. My mother looked like she might faint. Claire sat frozen, and Lisa... Lisa simply clenched her jaw, her fingers twitching at her sides. Daniel's eyes burned with frustration, but he must have realized there was nothing he could say to change my mind. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. You'll regret this, Jasmine. I smiled, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. No, Daniel. For the first time, I know I won't. The weight of their stares lingered long after I walked away. My mother's gasps, Daniel's burning glare, and Lisa's clenched jaw should have made me second-guess my decision. But instead, I felt lighter than I had in years. The chains were off. For the first time, I had chosen myself. My heart pounded as I closed my bedroom door behind me. I leaned against it, taking slow breaths, steadying myself. My hands trembled not out of fear, but from the rush of finally taking control of my life. I crossed the room, pulling open my drawer and rummaging through old letters until my fingers brushed against it. The scholarship letter. I held it in my hands, staring at the paper that had once been my ticket to freedom. The letter was slightly crumpled from being stuffed in a drawer for 2 months, but the words were still clear. Congratulations. You have been accepted into the International Business Program. The words blurred as my eyes welled up. I had thrown this away once. For Daniel. For a love that wasn't even real. I sank onto my bed, gripping the letter tightly. I wouldn't make the same mistake again. The next morning, I wasted no time. I contacted the university, explaining my situation. I expected them to turn me away, but to my surprise, the program coordinator was kind. Your application was one of the strongest we received, Jasmine, she said. We'd love to have you join us. You'll need to complete the final steps before the deadline, but if you can gather your documents quickly, we can reinstate your acceptance. My chest tightened with emotion. This was happening. This was really happening. I hung up and immediately began gathering my paperwork. My passport, birth certificate, transcripts, everything I needed to leave. I was so focused that I barely noticed the time passing until a knock sounded at my door. Lisa. I took a deep breath, schooling my face into indifference before opening it. Lisa. She smiled, stepping inside as if she owned the place. Jasmine, I was worried about you, she said, her tone dripping with false sweetness. You just disappeared after that scene yesterday. I folded my arms. I had things to do. Lisa sighed, dramatically, sitting on my bed like we were still best friends. Look, I get it. You're overwhelmed. But you don't have to make rash decisions. Leaving the country? Come on, Jazz. You have everything here. Your family, your friends. Do you really want to throw it all away for some school? I stared at her. You mean the school I turned down because you and Daniel convinced me that love was more important? Lisa stiffened for a fraction of a second before letting out a forced laugh. That's not what happened. We just wanted what was best for you. No, Lisa, I said, stepping closer. You wanted what was best for you. You wanted me here, trapped. Convenient. Her smile faltered. Jasmine, that's not fair. You knew about Daniel's cheating, didn't you? I cut her off, my voice sharp. You were my best friend. You knew and you said nothing. Worse, you pretended to care. Lisa's face paled slightly, but she recovered quickly. I didn't want to hurt you, she tried. You were happy. I figured what you didn't know wouldn't hurt you. I let out a hollow laugh. And yet it hurt me anyway, because the truth always comes out. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Jasmine, please don't do this. We've been friends for years. I met her gaze, my voice steady. No, Lisa. We stopped being friends the moment you chose lies over loyalty. Her lips pressed into a thin line, her mask of concern slipping away to reveal frustration. Fine, she said, standing up. Go then. Run away to your perfect little school. But don't come crawling back when you realize you made a mistake. I smiled. I won't. Lisa scoffed, flipping her hair over her shoulder as she stormed out. The door slammed behind her, and for the first time in years, I felt truly alone. But instead of fear, I felt peace. No more fake friends. No more lies. No more wasting my life for someone else's happiness. I glanced at my suitcase in the corner of the room. Tomorrow I will pack. Next week I will board a plane. And for the first time ever, I would be free. The moment I walked out of my family's home, I knew there was no turning back. The silence was deafening as I dragged my suitcase to the door. My mother sat stiffly on the couch, arms crossed, her lips pressed into a firm line. My father didn't even look up from his newspaper. The only person who spoke was my younger aunt, Clara, the only one who had ever truly supported me. "Jasmine," she said softly, walking up to me. "Are you sure about this?" I nodded, gripping my suitcase tighter. "I am." "You're making a mistake," my mother cut in sharply. "You're throwing away a perfectly good life. Do you know how many girls would kill for a man like Daniel?" I swallowed the bitterness rising in my throat. A man like Daniel? The one who cheated on me, lied to me, or the one who stood by and let everyone manipulate me? I let out a small laugh. "If that's your definition of a good man, then I'd rather be alone." "Don't be foolish," my father said, finally looking up. "Marriage is about compromise. You don't just walk away because of one mistake." "One mistake," I repeated, my voice rising. "He cheated on me for months. My so-called best friend covered for him. And you all expect me to just accept it and smile." My mother shook her head in disappointment. "You always were headstrong, just like your aunt." Clara smirked. "And look where that got me, successful, independent, and happy." Maybe Jasmine just doesn't want to live a life where she has to depend on a man who treats her like an option. My mother scoffed but didn't argue. She never approved of Clara's lifestyle. An unmarried woman who built her own business from the ground up, living life on her own terms. But I had always admired her for that. Clara turned to me, squeezing my hand. "I'm proud of you, Jasmine. If you ever need anything, call me." Tears pricked my eyes as I hugged her. "Thank you, Aunt Clara." My mother let out a frustrated sigh. "Go then. But don't come crawling back when you realize you've made the worst mistake of your life." I held my head high as I walked out the door. "I won't." The moment I stepped off the plane and into the bustling city of my new life, reality hit me all at once. The air was different, fresher, filled with the scent of opportunity. Skyscrapers towered above, their glass windows reflecting the golden glow of the setting sun. This was it. A new country, a new life, a second chance. My heart pounded as I dragged my suitcase through the university gates. I had done it. I had left everything behind, and now I had to build something entirely new. My dorm room was small but cozy, with a window overlooking the city. I unpacked quickly, determined to settle in. Tomorrow will be my first day in class. I wasn't just here to escape my past. I was here to prove to myself that I could succeed on my own. The lecture hall was massive, filled with students from all over the world. I took a seat near the middle, pulling out my notebook, determined to make a strong impression. "That seat's taken," a voice drawled. I glanced up to see a man standing over me, arms crossed. He was tall, with sharp, intelligent eyes and an air of arrogance that immediately set me on edge. "I don't see a name on it," I replied coolly. His lips twitched in amusement. "Ethan Carter. Now you do." I rolled my eyes but didn't move. "Well, Ethan Carter, I guess you'll just have to deal with it." A slow smirk spread across his face. "You're new here, aren't you? And you're observant. Congratulations." He chuckled, sliding into the seat next to me. "You've got guts. Most people don't talk to me like that." "Then maybe more people should." I shot back, turning my attention to the professor as the lecture began. Ethan didn't say anything else, but I could feel his gaze on me the entire time. There was something about him, an undeniable confidence, a quiet power. I had a feeling he wasn't used to people standing up to him. Good, because I wasn't here to make friends. I was here to build a future. Meanwhile, back home, Daniel paced his office, gripping his phone tightly. His jaw clenched as he read the news. Jasmine Novert awarded prestigious scholarship abroad. She had really done it. She had left. Without a word, without a glance back. His grip tightened. "You think you can just walk away from me, Jasmine?" He would prove her wrong, no matter what it took. I was finally moving on, throwing myself into my studies, forming friendships, and proving I belong. Until one day I saw an email. From Daniel. Subject: I still love you. I scoff, deleting it without reading. A week later, he shows up. In person. I froze when I saw him outside my dorm. Dressed in a crisp suit, holding a bouquet. He looks every bit the perfect man. The man she once thought he was. Jazz, he says softly. I came all this way for you. You shouldn't have. Please, just one conversation. Against my better judgment, I agree. We sit in a cafe and he lays it all out. I messed up. I was a fool. I lost the best thing in my life. I stir my coffee, and I stared at the man I once loved, the man I had almost given up my dreams for. Daniel stood before me, his expression painted with regret, his voice laced with sincerity that I knew was nothing but an illusion. Jasmine, please just hear me out. His voice was soft, desperate even, but I knew better. I folded my arms, raising an unimpressed brow. Hear you out? Like I did before. Like when you told me I was the only one, but you were sneaking around and Lisa covering it up? He flinched as if wounded by my words, but I knew it was all an act. Daniel always hated being confronted with his own mistakes. I made a mistake, he admitted, stepping closer. But people change. I've changed. I realized what I lost, Jasmine. I want us back. We were meant to be together. I let out a hollow laugh. Meant to be? Daniel, the only thing we were meant to be was a lesson. A lesson I refused to repeat. His jaw tensed. He wasn't used to her standing her ground, and she could see the flicker of frustration behind his pleading eyes. Jasmine, I know I hurt you. But doesn't our history mean anything? Doesn't what we had count for something? My phone buzzes. A message from Lisa. Jasmine, I miss you. Let's fix this. I felt a pang in her chest. There was a time when I would have given anything to hear those words, to see him fight for me. But I wasn't that naive girl anymore. Before I could answer, a deep voice interrupted. He's lying. If you go back, you'll regret it. I turned my head to see Ethan leaning against the doorway of the cafe they were in. His sharp, assessing eyes were locked on Daniel, his expression unreadable. Daniel scoffed, turning to face him. And who the hell are you? Ethan smirked, tilting his head slightly. Someone who doesn't tolerate bullshit. His gaze flickered back to Jasmine. You know what he's doing, right? Guilt-tripping you. Manipulating you. Trying to make you forget who he really is. I bit my lip. I didn't need Ethan to tell me that. I already knew. Daniel's expression darkened. Stay out of this. This is between Jasmine and me. Ethan didn't budge. If it involves trying to fool her again, then no. It's not just between you two. I let out a slow breath and turned to face Daniel, who was now glaring at Ethan with barely concealed annoyance. Daniel, let me be clear, I said firmly. I am done. You had your chance, and you threw it away. I have no more love to give you. No more chances, no more regrets. His face twisted, frustration and disbelief warring within him. You're making a mistake, Jasmine. One day, you'll regret leaving me. I chuckled, shaking my head. You and Lisa really think I'm that foolish, don't you? My lips curled into a knowing smile. The only mistake I made was loving you in the first place. I turned on my heel, not sparing him another glance as I walked past Ethan and out of the cafe. Ethan fell into step beside me, his voice lighter than before. That was fun to watch. I chuckled. Glad I could entertain you. He smirked. I think I'm starting to like you. I rolled my eyes but couldn't help the small smile tugging at my lips. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Truly free. And I wasn't about to waste it. Daniel was my past. But my future? That was entirely mine to shape. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. A year ago, I would have let Daniel's lies pull me back into his web. A year ago, I would have fallen for Lisa's fake tears. But not anymore. I was no longer that naive girl. This time, I was breaking free for good. Daniel still didn't get the message. He called, texted, and even showed up at my apartment, begging for another chance. Each time, I ignored him. But when he cornered me outside my university, I had enough. Jasmine, please. I love you, he pleaded, his voice desperate. I crossed my arms. You love me? Or do you just love controlling me? His jaw clenched, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of anger beneath the mask. It wasn't like that. I made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. Mistakes. I let out a bitter laugh. Daniel, you didn't just make a mistake. You made a choice. Over and over again. He tried to grab my hand, but I pulled away. Jasmine, if we just talk. I don't want to talk, I said, my voice firm. You and I, we're done. For good. That should have been the end of it. But of course, Lisa had to get involved. The next day, my phone buzzed nonstop. At first, I ignored it. But then I saw the notifications, comments, messages, even emails. My heart sank as I clicked on the first one. Lisa had started an online smear campaign against me. Jasmine is a gold digger who used Daniel for his money and dumped him once she got a scholarship. She's nothing but a liar who pretends to be innocent. She cheated on Daniel, and now she's playing the victim. My blood boiled. The audacity. The sheer hypocrisy. Lisa, the same person who backstabbed me, was now painting me as the villain? I scrolled through the comments, seeing how some people blindly believed her lies. But then, something unexpected happened. Others came to my defense. This doesn't add up. I know Jasmine personally, and she's nothing like this. If anyone's a liar, it's Lisa. Everyone at our school knew what she did. Lisa, weren't you the one caught sneaking around with Daniel behind Jasmine's back? Lisa didn't expect the backlash. She tried to delete comments, but screenshots had already spread. The truth was coming out. Instead of panicking, I decided to face her head on. I posted a single message. Lies only work when people don't know the truth. Unfortunately for you, Lisa, the truth is louder than your fake stories. Then, I attached screenshots, proof of everything she had done, from her texts with Daniel to the messages where she mocked me behind my back. The tables turned instantly. People who had believed her lies were now attacking her. She tried to play the victim, but no one was buying it. I felt no guilt watching her crumble. She had tried to ruin my life. She had played dirty, but I had been one step ahead. With Lisa out of the way and Daniel finally realizing I wasn't coming back, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. No more looking over my shoulder. No more wondering who was truly on my side. I was finally free. And for the first time, I was ready to focus on my future. There was no looking back. Only forward. Towards the life I was meant to live. For the first time in what felt like forever, I could breathe. Really breathe. No weight of betrayal pressing on my chest. No shadows of my past creeping up behind me. I had broken free, and it felt damn good. The storm that was Lisa's smear campaign had finally settled. My name had been cleared, my dignity restored, and most importantly, I had learned that no matter how much people try to tear you down, they only succeed if you let them. And I refused to let them. The university campus buzzed with life as students rushed to their classes, laughter and chatter filling the air. It was a stark contrast to the world I had left behind. The suffocating pretense, the lies, and the heartbreak. Here, I was just Jasmine. Not Daniel's fiancée. Not Lisa's former best friend. Just me. And for the first time, that was enough. Ethan had been acting differently. Less cold, less distant. I caught him watching me sometimes, his usual smirk replaced with something softer, something I couldn't quite read. We still argued, some habits die hard, but there was a newfound respect between us. Like he had finally recognized the fire in me. The same fire that refused to be extinguished no matter how hard life tried to snuff it out. One evening, after class, I found him waiting outside the lecture hall. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, the golden glow of the sunset casting long shadows across his face. "So, what's next for you?" he asked, his voice casual, but there was an edge of curiosity beneath it. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Everything. I wasn't lying. I had dreams, ambitions that I had once buried for the sake of a man who never truly loved me. But not anymore. I was reclaiming my life, step by step. I had applied for internships, joined clubs, even started writing again, something I had long abandoned in the chaos of my past. Ethan studied me for a moment before nodding. "Good. You deserve it." I tilted my head, surprised. That almost sounded like a compliment. He smirked. "Don't get used to it." I laughed, shaking my head. There was something oddly reassuring about his presence, like a challenge I wanted to meet. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as bad as I had thought. As I walked away, the city lights flickering in the distance, a sense of peace settled over me. I had survived. I had risen from the ashes of heartbreak and betrayal, stronger than ever. And as the wind carried away the last remnants of my past, I whispered to myself. Then, graduation day, the moment I had been working toward for years, had finally arrived. The grand hall buzzed with excitement as students in navy blue gowns adjusted their caps. Families gathered in proud anticipation, and professors exchanged knowing smiles. But for me, this day wasn't just about receiving a diploma. It was a declaration, a symbol of everything I had fought for, every tear I had shed, every battle I had won. I adjusted my sash, taking a deep breath as I stood backstage, waiting for my name to be called. The weight of the past felt lighter now, as if I had finally shed the chains that once bound me. As the announcer's voice rang through the hall, my heart pounded in my chest. And the award for Best Graduating Student goes to Jasmine Novard. The auditorium erupted into applause, but all I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat. I stepped forward, feeling the warmth of the stage lights on my skin. I accepted the award with steady hands, smiling as I looked out into the sea of faces. And then, my gaze landed on someone I hadn't expected to see. My aunt. She stood at the back of the hall, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, her hands clasped together in pride. The one person who had believed in me when no one else did. She had defied the whispers of my family, had encouraged me when they tried to break me, and had reminded me that I was more than someone's fiancé. I was my own person. After the ceremony, as I stepped outside into the cool breeze, she rushed forward, enveloping me in a tight embrace. "You did it, Jasmine," she whispered. "I always knew you would." Tears threatened to spill from my eyes, but I held them back, smiling as I clung to her warmth. "I couldn't have done it without you." As we pulled away, I noticed a small group standing hesitantly at a distance, my parents and my younger sister. Guilt lined their faces, regret evident in the way my mother clutched the hem of her dress, the way my father avoided my eyes, the way my sister shifted uncomfortably. They had never supported me. When I had broken off my engagement and left the country, they had called me foolish, selfish, and ungrateful. They had sided with Daniel, scolding me for ruining what they considered a perfect match. They had chosen their reputation over their daughter. But now they saw me standing on a stage, achieving something they never believed I could. And the realization cut through them like a blade. I took a deep breath and walked toward them. My mother's lips trembled as she reached for me. "Jasmine, we..." I held up a hand, stopping her. "I know what you're going to say." Regret flickered in her eyes. "We were wrong. We should have supported you." My father cleared his throat, looking ashamed. "We let our pride blind us, and we lost you in the process." A part of me had craved these words for years and had longed for the day they would finally acknowledge their mistake. But another part of me, one that had grown, that had healed, knew that their regret wouldn't change the past. I smiled softly, my voice calm yet firm. "I don't need an apology. I needed your support when it mattered most. But I made it anyway, and I did it without you." Silence stretched between us, heavy and unspoken. My mother's eyes filled with tears, and my sister looked away, shame written across her face. My aunt squeezed my hand, her presence grounding me. I turned to her, my heart swelling with gratitude. "Let's go," I said, linking my arm with hers. "I have a future to celebrate." As we walked away, I didn't look back, because this time I had already won.